Welcome to Real Talk, Real Women. My name is Miriam Khalladi, and today we have secret mantra chant artist, mind body medicine scientist, and self mastery coach Jacqueline Carly on the show. Welcome, Jacqueline. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
How did you initially get interested in health and nutrition?
Well, it started when I was younger. I grew up an overweight child, and I started my first diet when I was in the fourth grade. And when I got older in high school, I ended up having a really bad eating disorder and went through a lot of treatment and therapy and stuff like that. And when I wanted to get well, because it took a long time to get to that point, I decided that I needed to learn about food because I needed to have a relationship with food. Because as you know, we can't live without it. So whereas everything else, alcohol or drugs, you can abstain, food, you have to learn to live with it or you can't survive. So I went on to study holistic nutrition, so that way I could learn how to fuel my body. And the more that I studied, the more that my world was kind of flipped upside down. And I was really intrigued as I was learning about how we can heal ourselves. And then that transitioned into working with other people and teaching them about it. And I kind of just ended up in all areas, exploring all areas, personal training, being a fitness instructor, being a yoga instructor, and really just wanting to be able to experience all of the different facets of health and fitness.
Great, amazing. So you struggled with a really bad eating disorder, were bulimic for many years, and depressed and overweight. Did you ever feel this was just going to be your life? Were you ever afraid it was too far down the road?
Yeah, for sure. For a really long time, there's definitely, when you're in it, you don't necessarily see a light at the end of the tunnel. And I thought that I was going to really suffer for the rest of my life and kind of be stuck in this place where I hated myself, I hated my body, I was miserable around other people. And there's definitely a process that you have to go through in order to come out of that. But it did seem like that at the time, that I was going to end up staying there forever.
And I saw an interview with you where you explained that you had worked on your relationship with food. A lot of people don't even consider the idea of having a relationship with food. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah. Everything is energy. Everything. This computer, our headphones, the table, the food, everything is energy. And so when we interact with food in a way that's negative, in a way that we start thinking food is bad, and we kind of separate ourselves from that, energetically it affects us, it affects how we feel, it affects our emotional state. And then also we end up making these not necessarily healthy choices in terms of either how much we eat, what we eat. And so the relationship with food is really kind of a shift in perspective, coming more from a place of love rather than fear, and not necessarily just love for food, but love for yourself, how you want to treat yourself, fuel your body, how you want to feel, how you want your skin to glow, how much energy you want to have to be able to spend times with your family and friends or your kids and things like that. And so in order to do that, then you have to learn to have a relationship with food where it's a reciprocal relationship, where you're giving it love because it's going to be doing all of these amazing things for your body, and it's giving you love because it supports you in the life that you want to live.
You've recovered from your eating disorder for over 10 years now. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What is the biggest lesson you've learned about yourself in this journey?
Oh boy, the biggest lesson. The biggest lesson, I guess, would have to be that I can get through anything, that I can persevere. I think that would have to be it, whether it be my eating disorder, whether it be, you know, a work-related crisis, or whether it be deciding to train for something that I've never done before. You know, sometimes it just seems like the mountain is so daunting and that we're never going to get there. But I think that's something that I've been learning in my process, is that I can get there. I just need to have a lot of patience, and I need to work the practice. And it's a daily practice.
You got better, and the more you got better, the more determined you became to stay better. At one point, you started helping other people as well. What drove you to want to help others?
I think that's a part of my healing as well, is that as I was figuring things out for myself and things started to change, and then you see other people suffering and in that same headspace that you were in, you want them to know that that it's better, that it can get better. And so that was really important to me, to be able to help people to see that. And when we help other people and when we give of ourselves to helping other people, that internally fuels ourselves and helps us heal even further. So there's this back and forth exchange between, you know, when you help somebody, and it can be a really beautiful thing.
I agree. You're also a very spiritual person. How does the spiritual side of things impact your life?
Yeah, interestingly, that came later in life. And when I say later, I mean probably in the last 5 or 6 years. I've been more immersed in that as I've been studying Buddhism and Hinduism and different cultures and Eastern philosophy and stuff like that. And it's really helped to guide me in my everyday life, in terms of I spent a lot of the earlier part of my life always either living in the future or living in the past. So I would either in my head be always rehashing stuff that happened, or I'd be spending so much time thinking, oh, you know, when this happens, then my life will be better. When I lose 10 pounds, my life will be better. When I get that job, then it's going to be perfect. When I meet that guy, then that's it. And I lost a lot of what was happening now, and the interactions that I had with people. And so as I've been studying more Eastern philosophy and different religions, it's really helped to center me and to be more aware of what's happening now, and to learn to let go of trying to be so controlling of things all the time, and also to connect to something bigger than myself. I don't, you know, I'm not trying to force any dogma on anybody, or say, you know, believe one thing, you know, that there's a God or not a God or whatever. But it just, I think there's something that makes me feel so much more alive when I believe that I'm a part of something that is bigger, and that you and I are connected, although we've never met in person, that, you know, that cosmically and energetically there's this bigger thing, and that you and I are sisters in a way. And I've really, you know, tried to embrace that, and trying to live that every day.
Let's talk a little bit about fear. You once had an experience with a teacher who told you you were never going to amount to anything. How did that impact you, and how do you deal with negative people today?
Yeah, that was a really big one. That was a voice teacher, actually, and so I'm a singer as well, and I had gone to school for opera, and I was going to be an opera singer, and so I had this teacher that told me that I was never going to get anywhere, and that basically I sucked. And at the time, I was definitely I didn't have a lot of self-value. I didn't have a lot of self-esteem, and I looked externally for a lot of my validation. And so when this teacher had told me that, I took it for face value to say, oh, well, you know, she's the expert. She must be right. And I shut down after that, and I stopped singing. And so I just basically took somebody's opinion and made it gospel and said, okay, that's it. Um, and so fast forward all these years later, about 8 years later after I had my daughter, and like I said, as I started this kind of more Eastern philosophy, spiritual path where I've been doing a lot of self-exploration and stuff like that, I started to reevaluate that, reevaluate what that person told me. And it wasn't easy at first. I mean, there's a big part of me that really wanted to cling to that and accept that she was right, because then if she's right, and if I say, okay, yeah, she's right, then I don't have to face it, and I don't have to do any work, and I can just say, let that go. But on the flip side, there was a big part of me that was missing. Music had been a part of my life my entire life, and it had been a form of self-expression for me. And so there was something that was missing for me that I had been looking for in many different places and in different ways. It just wasn't getting fulfilled. And so when I started to look at that and open myself up to that, and try singing again, then I realized that the choice was mine. And whether or not she thinks that I'm a good singer or that I'm going to amount to anything is her opinion, and I have a choice. I have a choice whether or not to accept that opinion. And so as of today, I've chosen not to, and I'm happily singing and performing and stuff like that, and it's been really great. And that's been a huge lesson for me in terms of other people's opinions and fear, is the perspective of choice, is that no matter what, we always have a choice. Even if we feel like we don't, we do. Even if it's really hard and we don't want to have to make a choice, we still have a choice. And so I keep a little note in front of me that says choice. And a friend had said, Marie Forleo, she says, everything is figure-outable. Her mom had told her that. Everything is figure-outable. And so if you look at it like that, everything is figure-outable, there's always a choice and there's always a way, then it's a lot easier to keep the naysayers at bay. For me, it was like 10 years or something like that where I stayed believing that. And there are people that spend their entire lifetimes believing, whatever it is that person tell them, and go to their grave like that. And it's heartbreaking because, we all have gifts and we're all special, and people always have their opinions no matter what. We just have to choose to believe in ourselves.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. So thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
People tend to find excuses to not go for the things they really want in life. What is the best advice you can give in regards to overcoming fear and no longer making excuses?
Yeah. Well, in my journey, and it's taking me a long time to get to this place, but where I'm at right now is my perspective is life is so short, and we have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow, or even, after we're done with this call. We have no idea. It's too short to wait. And so my advice, I guess, would to say is to really try to look at things from the perspective of love rather than fear. And so the opposite of fear is love. And when I say love, I'm not trying to be all fairy tale roses and everything like that. What I mean is, love for yourself, and love for other people, and love for wanting to live the best life that you want to have, and love for, living out your dreams. And I think it's really important that I think sometimes it's great when things are easy. It's great when things are easy and they kind of flow and stuff like that. But I also think that there's a misconception sometimes that people think that if it's hard, then it's not meant to be, or, that if they have to struggle for it, then it's, that they don't want to do that. And I think that it's important for people to remember that sometimes things are hard, and sometimes you have to go through the lows before you get to the highs. But my coach posted yesterday, I think it's discipline is what is it? Discipline is realizing not going for what you want right now, but going for what you want most. And so, looking at that long-term road and saying, okay, this is where I want to be, and I know that I'm here, and it's, it might be a struggle and it might suck to get there, but the end is going to be so worth it, and you're going to learn so much getting there. And by the time you get there, you're going to be like, oh my God, this is freaking amazing. And I am so glad that I did this for myself, because I deserve it.
I totally agree.
And so, yeah. So my advice would be to just freaking go for it, because life is short.
Yeah, thank you. And at one point, you realized that there was an unresolved thing that you wanted to pursue, singing. How did you get back on that path, and how big of a part is it in your life today?
Yeah, that was a pretty amazing thing, the way that happened. I was in my second yoga teacher training. I did my 200-hour and then my 500-hour, and my teacher for my 500-hour had done an exercise the first weekend that we were together, and all of us had to write down, we had to partner with people, and then we had to write down what our intention was to get out of this training and out of life and all this stuff. And so then we shared it with each other, and then we stood up and we had to share it with everybody in the class. And so I had written out a bunch of things about using my voice, but it was using my voice to teach, and it was using my voice to speak. And when I stood up in front of the group, what I ended up saying was that I want to sing, which was not what I wrote down, but it just came out by accident. And so it was must have been kind of welling up in there somehow. And afterwards, my teacher said, I don't know if you've ever heard of this music called kirtan music, but I think maybe that you should look into it, seeing as how you're a yoga teacher, and kirtan music is, it's chanting, it's sacred, it's Sanskrit chanting of the divine gods and goddesses, and it's beautiful. So I ended up looking into it and listening to all this music, and it turns out that my teacher was very good friends with this very well-known kirtan artist named Girish. And he introduced me to him, and fast forward, a couple of weeks later, I was playing with Girish, and then he asked me to go on tour with him and do all of these performances. And after that, it just kind of took off. And so it was very serendipitous, and in the way that it happened. And I've been loving every minute of it, because I've been learning all of these beautiful mantras and chants, and it's a really great also meditative practice, and it's a great way also to connect with other people when you do it in groups. And it's been wonderful, and that has also translated into me teaching chant and mantra workshops as well at yoga studios and stuff like that. So it was a really kind of very beautiful unfolding.
Yeah, wow, wonderful.
Thank you.
You also have a daughter. Having gone through what you've gone through, how do you teach your daughter about self-confidence and self-esteem?
Yeah, my daughter is 8, and she's a firecracker. She's a lot of fun, and that has been one of my biggest fears since I've had her, is not wanting her to go through what I went through, and wanting her to develop as a person that, girl that loves herself and is confident. And so I've really been very conscious of that, conscious in the way that I speak to her, conscious in the way that I model for her at home, in terms of the way that I eat or exercise and being active, and how we treat other people. and stuff like that. And so it's been a process. There's a fine line in terms of wanting to teach her these things, but also not wanting to be overbearing or to make her like neurotic and stuff. And like I even though I model healthy eating and we talk about it and stuff like that, I also, you know, don't want to be at the other end of the spectrum where I'm saying like you can't have fat, or you can't have a candy bar, or you can't have ice cream, or, and stuff like that. And so there's a fine line and balance in terms of, you know, really trying to teach her all these things, but at the same time not wanting to make her crazy or make her afraid of food or make her, you know, just just a little wacky. And so it's a dance. It's a dance. But she's amazing, and she's a beautiful artist, and she draws Japanese anime, and she's just developing into a beautiful young lady.
Let's talk a little bit about writing down your goals and the law of attraction. And how do you go about goal setting and achievement?
This past year, I kind of revisited that a little bit. There is an amazing book by a woman named Danielle Laporte. It's about desire, basically, and it kind of flips goal setting around in the sense that instead of looking at goals just in terms of choosing goals based on like I want to accomplish this, more looking at it is how do I want to feel? How do I want to feel every day? And then how do I want to feel every day? How do I want to feel in my love life? How do I want to feel in my personal life? And then from those feelings, then choosing things that are going to bring those, you know, that are going to bring those experiences to you. And so that's been a really, really interesting way for me to look at things in terms of, they're called your core desire feelings, carrying around my core desire feelings. And as I'm making choices in terms of, you know, deciding, like, for example, you know, deciding that I wanted to compete at the end of the year and figure, does that align with my core desire feelings? Does that align with how I want to feel? And if it does, then I know that I'm headed in the right direction. If it feels out of whack and I feel like if I make this choice and it doesn't align with how I want to feel, then it's not the right one for me. And so that's kind of how I've been doing things lately in terms of that, rather than creating kind of a very kind of hard and specific list of things that I need to achieve. I feel like I really want to focus more on the experience of things and how I feel in things, and then make choices based on that.
It's a great way to look at it like that.
Yeah. It feels good.
Yeah.
It feels good, and I think, and I'm not saying that like that's the right way for everybody, but for me, it's the right way right now, because I spent a lot of time saying, okay, I need to achieve this by 26, and I need to do this by 27, and I have to be making this much money by 34, and, you know, and I need to do this, and like all of that stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that, but for me, it just put me in a very kind of like, almost like beating myself up all the time. And so doing it this way now is just being kinder to myself, really.
And healthier.
Yes.
Where can people go online to connect with you?
Well, I am, right now my sites are being redone, but they should be up in the next week or so. So they can go to BlissVox, BLISSVOX.com. And I'm also relaunching my health and wellness site called Fitarella.com, FITARELLA.com. But I'm on Twitter all the time, so you can tweet me at JCQLY. My boyfriend says it's spelled Jacqueline, but JCQLY. And so that's where I am.
Okay, and I will make sure to put all the links below this video.
Okay, well, thank you so much. This is so
you.
lovely.
Thank you so much. Do you feel there's anything we've missed out that you like to talk about?
No, I think that we've pretty much covered it, and I really appreciate you taking the time and wanting to speak to me. It's lovely.
And thank you so much, Jacqueline. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you so much for watching. My name is Miriam Khalladi, and I will see you on the next episode of Real Talk, Real Women.